All right, Clint from the doorway too, hanging out with Miguel and Isaac of Mountaineer. So thank you very much for doing these, guys. This is my first interview again back in 3 months. I literally moved from Arizona to Florida and got everything finally set back up. So you are phase two of this process now. So why don't I don't care who starts first, Miguel or Isaac, but why don't you tell the folks that we're talking to a little about what you do with the band and how long you've been with the band?
Miguel, take it away.
Do you want to go, Isaac?
Sure. I'm Isaac. I am one of the 3 guitarists in Mountaineer. I've been with Mountaineer since about 2018, starting at Bloodletting, their 3rd album. And I was lucky at that time to join up with some guys that were already, in an established band, Miguel being one of them, along with Clayton and Pat. They had released 2 albums, Sirens and Slumber and Passages before that. And our latest album together is Giving Up the Ghost. Miguel, you want to take over?
Yeah. Been doing this since the end of 2015. Clayton was part of another band called Secrets of the Sky, and he hit me up, and I said yes. And we've been in the band since 2015, and I sing.
Cool. Thanks, guys. So I am going to go over 3 records with you. So Isaac, I know you weren't on it, but if you want to chime in on the first one I'm going to talk about, that's fine as well too. But I want to start with Passages because that's the first record that I heard from you guys. I want to say there's a lot of similarities between Passages and Giving Up the Ghost. Okay. And in my opinion, you kind of bring back the shoegazer, kind of more atmospheric melodic element, which I feel like was missing on Bloodletting a little bit. So why don't, Miguel, you give me a little kind of understanding of how Passages came to be, how you feel about it 4 years later, something along those lines.
Passages, back then we were just a 3-piece, so it was Clayton on guitar, Patrick on drums, Patrick Spain on drums, and me singing. And that record came about, Clayton wrote the entire thing. He sat down and wrote it from start to finish with basically nonstop. Like, he never went back to fix anything. He started writing it and piecing it together and just kept going until he was done. That's why it's got that huge, it just keeps on going, and mixing in, and meshing in. There's really no, you can clearly tell where songs start and end, but for the most part, it's one huge song. It's split into 2 pieces. I feel I love that record still 4 years later. Sometimes I go back and listen to it, just to go over it and remember things and stuff, kind of reminisce. I think it's our most landscape kind of album.
Yes.
It feels like you're staring at the Grand Canyon, and looking at one end and then at the other. It just feels like this huge thing.
Cool.
So I still think it's awesome. That's when for me it felt like I'm like, oh, okay, this is Mountaineer, because the first album, it was just a bunch of songs and we're like, yeah, let's put it out, but in Passages, it was really, really a lot of time and effort put into it. So that's when it really felt like this is Mountaineer.
Gotcha. I'm gonna go blindly with the first one because I've never heard it. So I've only heard the 3 records. So what I was gonna say was with Passages, it kind of has a lot more of a kind of post-hardcore kind of vibe too. I feel like you wear influences a little more on your sleeve with your first record. So like that I heard. So I know that's not your first record, but that's what I hear. And there's a lot more kind of shoegazer, where what I mean slower, more atmospheric building elements on that record. And I was going to say as well, it feels like one song. It doesn't feel like it's a bunch of different songs. Isaac, how do you feel about that record coming in after it?
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. It's an amazing record, and it's what drew me into this project. To share a little of the story there, I am the founder of and play with the other guitarist Forrest in Mountaineer in another Bay Area post metal band called Dogma. And we released another album, Unmarked Boxes, last year. What Where the connection kind of came about is they had just, I think you guys had just released the first single of Passages. I found it. I ended up hitting Clayton up, knowing that they're local like me, and just being like, this is amazing. He checks out some of my stuff. And then within a couple of weeks, he and I decided to jam together at my practice space. And I mean, maybe we're a little early to move into the Bloodletting story, but I think speaking to what you kind of observed, I understand why that observation come about with Bloodletting, because this was the first moment of us all meeting together and kind of like figuring out how to work together. I had a certain background musically. These guys had a certain background musically, and we were kind of merging our two influences together. And that's what really came out on, I think, the Bloodletting record. Yeah, I mean, I love Passages, and I got my start with these guys playing a couple shows where it was all songs from Passages, and we had to go on hiatus for shows for all the reasons every band in the world did.
Yeah.
And now we're just starting to do it again, and it's like revisiting these Passages songs, and it reminds me why I kind of fell in love with the project and being a part of it and devoting my time to it.
Cool. So you give me a perfect segue to go into Bloodletting. So thank you very much for that, because there's two things I wanted to talk about. So I feel like from Passages to Bloodletting, it goes from more post-hardcore to post-metal. And why I say that is the metallic influences are more there. The song structures are more there. There's also a black metal element hidden in the background to me. It's not something that's like right up front, but there is definitely, and Miguel, it's because of vocally, I think you use a very cascadic black metal kind of vocal style on some of the songs. So both of you, talk to me. When you went in to do Bloodletting, did you specifically, because you guys were actually a group now and a unit and knew each other a little bit better, did you say, hey, I have these influences, I have these ideas, let's blend Isaac's ideas into Mountaineer and make it what it is? Because it almost sounds like some of the guitar parts and some of the ideas were very much from the fresh blood that was coming into the band.
It's really funny because Bloodletting, I don't really think we were like, oh, we're gonna write Bloodletting. It wasn't like that. I think Clayton had the first song and the title, and which is Blood of the Book and Bloodletting. Those are like the only two things that we had going on. We had like, this is Blood of the Book, and this is what I kind of have going on with this song. And I think the title of the album should be called Bloodletting. And we were having this conversation about how, we wanted the theme, not musically, but like just the theme to be about shedding skin and letting go of like things in your life that you no longer want to be a part of. So that's how we went into writing music for this album, with that idea in mind. So like the music we never said, oh, this part needs to be like this, and then now here comes the pretty part. No, nothing like that. It was just like, every time we got together, like we were like, oh, here's this new thing. What do you guys think? And like we would just kind of flow and work into the song ideas, and they just all kind of like came together like that. It wasn't like a premeditated kind of thing. It just happened that way, and we knew that we wanted it to be similar to Passages. We knew that we wanted to keep that big landscape feel for it, but we wanted it to be different. And obviously, we wanted it to be the one thing we were like, we wanted this to be heavier, because it's about change, but the subject matter is also heavy. Let's like, like think about like the darkest times you've been through and like the people that you no longer want to be involved with, and it's like, it's like painful and to go through the process of letting go it's hard. So it called for that heaviness. I think I'm gonna stop there and let Isaac.
Yeah, well, no, Miguel, I'm glad you went first, because you kind of reminded me of the writing process where we all did really gel around this theme of letting go, this theme of moving on from things in our life that were kind of toxic. And, going from you guys as a three-piece to now we're 5 members, we were all able to find kind of common ground and speak to this like shared experience we had pretty much everyone has had in their lives by the time, you're our age. We've all kind of been through this. But to speak kind of the musical side of the creation of Bloodletting, I think what came out with Bloodletting is we initially talked about that theme, and we were kind of working towards maybe an EP because, we wanted to do something together. I had just joined the band, and I had brought on Forrest. The process of writing Bloodletting is that musically, for the first time, I was writing some of the songs outside on my own, and then Clayton was writing some of the songs, and I think we all contributed lyrically and ideas on that front. But, Clayton had come up with a couple ideas, and I had come up with a couple ideas, and we have tracks that are kind of like, this one was a little bit more Clayton's idea, this one was a little bit more Isaac's idea, and that's, I think, why Bloodletting is maybe a little bit different than previous albums, because you have multiple writers really, really shaping the sound of the songs on it. And we're in that phase kind of, we work together, we fit together, but we're kind of learning each other at the same time. We're learning how to write together. And I think that speaks to a little bit of the growth that we've seen in the latest album, is really kind of gelling, writing collectively rather than separately, and then bringing it back together is a little bit of the difference that happened in the latest album versus Bloodletting. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Miguel.
Yeah, well, it's funny when you think about the parts of Bloodletting that were written by certain members. Like,
yeah,
Isaac wrote the pretty parts, and Clayton wrote the heavy parts, which is funny because it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
But it just worked. It just worked out that way. And
I'm the one with the black metal secret background, by the way.
Exactly. And
I come from the Cascadian and black metal world prior to Dogma.
Gotcha.
So you would
think
where that is from. Isaac would be like, yeah, check out all these like picking things and all this great stuff. And it's like, no, it's like, check out this pretty thing. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Let's use that.
That's awesome though. Like that's great. Like whatever works, bring it out. Yeah. So I'm gonna go into Giving Up the Ghost by this kind of a reference. So if it's shocking, great. Give me feedback on it, because this is kind of like my thoughts. I feel like Bloodletting, you shed a lot of the darkness and went into Giving Up the Ghost. And so Giving Up the Ghost to me has 2 very similar things to Passages and 2 new elements. So I would say there's some hardcore elements that come back that really weren't on Bloodletting for me. The other thing that I think comes back is that shoegaze again. Especially, I don't know which one of the three guitar players has that tone, but it's that very My Bloody Valentine kind of dissonant, droning tone that just is what draws me to your band. So this record is the first record I heard and I went backwards. So I'm one of those guys, all right? So I heard the newest and went backwards to the oldest. The two new things that I hear on this record, and you tell me if I'm not politically correct. So guys, if I'm goddamn crazy, you just tell me, all right? But I hear dream pop elements on it, and I am talking about 80s like synth pop and things like that mixed into the tonality of it, as well as you have gone to almost post doom, not post metal. There are some of the doomiest, just thickest riffs that I've ever heard on a record on this record. And it could be because there's three guitar players. I'm not saying that, but you guys kind of talk about that. When you were writing the record, did you hear this too, or is this something that just, naturally happened?
I think it naturally happened. There was no, especially the thing is, Giving Up the Ghost wasn't even like a thing we were like planning on doing. It was like Bloodletting. Man, what are we gonna do about Bloodletting? Like, we're in this pandemic, we can't do anything, and it's been, it's already been a year since Bloodletting. What are we gonna do? Like, okay, so now we're vaccinated, now we can wear masks around each other. We should start thinking about just getting together and practicing. Yeah, sure. And then it was just, well, here's a song idea. It just started happening, and it not forced at all. And we only put out what we came up with. There was no extra, no nothing. It was just like, here's this package and this is what it is, and it's post Bloodletting, but it's still Mountaineer. Like, there's no way that it's not. Like, it just, I feel like it's a perfect example of everything that we put out. Like, starting from the first record, from Sirens in Slumber, Passages, and Bloodletting, you hear every single thing that we've done on all those three records in Giving Up the Ghost. Yeah, Isaac?
I mean, to describe the main writing difference between Bloodletting to this one, like I mentioned, with Bloodletting, we're learning how to work together, and I'm kind of writing a track idea in Pro Tools and showing it to the band, and Clayton's doing the same thing as he's done. He's written separate tracks in Pro Tools, kind of layers of guitar on that are his own ideas, and then showing it to the band, and we're kind of coming together. This last record was not like that at all. It was completely collectively written, and to the point of, Clayton was pissing me off because I'm writing ideas into Pro Tools, showing it to the band, and he's like, this is great, but we're not going to use it because this needs to be written together in this room at this time when we're all together, and we contribute in that way. And honestly, it's the 10th record I've ever been a part of in my life, and it was the first time ever writing like that. And I think that's what makes it really special to me.
Yeah.
That we all just really, like, I don't feel like this song is my song or that song's Clayton's song, or Forrest is in there way more than on Bloodletting too, because he was kind of newer at the Bloodletting portion, but we're just all there. And I think that's what makes these songs the most special, is all these things that you're describing. That's just what came out of our collaboration of, the six of us, really.
Cool. So I'm going to dig a little deep into something right now. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine, but I'm still going to do it. So for the first time with Giving Up the Ghost, there's almost a spiritual feeling on this record. Okay. And I don't mean in the religious way spiritual. I almost feel like when you listen to this record, it is almost out of body. Like, if I close my eyes and listen to this record, every time I listen to it, a different emotion, feeling, passion kind of comes through depending on how I feel that day. when you recorded this record, did you feel like a special vibe happening? And Isaac, I know what you just talked about kind of ties into this, but did you feel like, okay, you know what? We're 3 songs into this. Holy shit, this is something very different.
Yeah, we definitely knew it was.
Yeah.
We definitely knew it was different. We're like, we looked at the songs. We're like, it's not Bloodletting, but it's not. You know, that's. But in touching on that spiritual thing, I totally, yeah, like this album is about coping with you know, being in a situation that you cannot get out of, and dealing with thoughts of life and death, you know, like it, you know, like thinking about like what, you know, what's gonna happen, like
Mhm.
you know, you could die at any moment, and then you start thinking about like cycles, you know, like beginning and end beginning. Like, at least for me, that's how I started looking at this. I was like, you know, thinking about death a lot, you know, because that's, you know, turn on the TV, you know,
Yeah.
and that's what you see. You listen to things on social media. Everything is about like all these deaths, all this stuff. And for me, you know, like I definitely, this album's a lot about how everything personally affected me. So, you know, the lyrics are very get really personal at times.
Sure.
But yeah, I think I kind of got lost in what I'm trying to say.
It was good. No, you were talking about the spirituality side, and you very much did that.
And I feel like even with the themes of the music videos, like you kind of, you know, you kind of see, like, it's kind of like we're like showing you this is this is what it's all about,
Yeah.
without giving too much away, because my favorite thing is for people to be able to, you know, interpret everything their own way. But yeah.
I mean, to that, you know, this is a record that for all of us, you know, I described, we're writing it together. We're writing it in our rehearsal space, kind of coming up with ideas on the spot with each other to kind of bounce, you know, our thinking and our riffs off of. And it's what we're all experiencing during the pandemic. And, you know, the fact that we're not playing shows, that we're not living kind of life as usual. Because I think that's when the majority of this stuff was written, was like in the, you know, couple months into real lockdown. And
Yeah.
life was not really resumed at that point. And this is what came out of us. I know one of the discussions we had that was really important is when we decided that what was the best use of our time was to write something new, even though we hadn't really toured off Bloodletting or anything like that, we decided we weren't going to try to go heavier than Bloodletting. That wasn't going to be a, like, why? Bloodletting was so heavy, and are we just going to keep down tuning our guitars lower and lower? So, I mean, to the point of stupidity, we weren't going to try to beat what we had done in terms of heavy. We were just going to make what we wanted to make at that moment, and Giving Up the Ghost is what came out of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to kind of talk about is influences that I hear in the band. And I want to give one big tag and beginning statement of, I get so pissed off that all I see are these Neurosis comparisons over and over.
Like we talk about this a lot.
Okay, yeah, like just because you're a post-metal band and you have atmospheric and quiet and heavy parts doesn't make you a fucking Neurosis clone, okay? Like, it's the dumbest comments I have ever heard in my life. There are 3 very particular bands that I want to talk about that I hear in you. And maybe it's completely wrong, but it's what I hear, so it's what brings me to you. The first one is Cult of Luna, okay? And the reason why I say Cult of Luna is they do exactly what you do, but in a much more bombastic kind of way. They throw all jazz, punk, pop, shoegaze, whatever. You can like just the line's gonna go. They do that. The other one that I really want to talk about is the Ocean. I don't know if you guys like them or not, but I swear to God, you are brothers of the same mother. Like that, like when I hear the Ocean and Mountaineer, I swear to God, you guys can hang out together. And if you formed one band, it would almost be this super group of what you're both already doing. All right. And then the last one, one of my favorite bands ever and has one of the worst names ever because of what happened is ISIS. All right. ISIS did exactly what you did in reverse to me. They went from mellow to blindingly heavy and then just disappeared. And they disappeared, of course, because of the whole ISIS thing. But like I said, Aaron is a friend as well. So like I just, when I talk about those three bands, throw Neurosis out of the way. I love Neurosis as a band, but I just get so tired of every band that does whatever post-metal style gets that thrown in. Do those three bands throw any influence or love to you as a band?
I'm gonna say I like Cult of Luna. I like ISIS. The Ocean, I don't think I've ever listened to them. I see them come up on my Instagram feed, so maybe I should check them out. But I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
Not at all.
No, I'm gonna say yes and dispute you, man.
I mean,
yes.
I'm gonna argue with you on this one.
Yes, I mean, I get it, and it's not like a whoa. You know, like we want to sound like Cult of Luna.
Oh, that's not what I meant.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
We've never done that.
Yeah,
but they've influenced our writing. They've influenced my writing, for sure.
I guess so. I guess I could say that. But I like when I think of our music, those bands don't come to mind.
Well, Miguel, what bands come to mind?
I listen to a lot of other stuff. I mean, like one of my favorite bands is Depeche Mode. So
awesome.
I just think of like doing things like that. Like I imagine what the heavy version of that would be, and that's what I try to do. Cool. I feel like I don't think anyone else in our band will probably think that, but I feel like there's a lot of similarities to Failure sometimes, and that's one of my favorite bands. It's a lot of Failure, and just like a lot of like early 2000s sounds mixed in. You know, it's like we've never had like this band wasn't like. I don't think the idea was to like take like sounds that we wanted to mesh together. It was just something that's going to be heavy and atmospheric, and obviously it ends up landing with the likes of Neurosis and Cult of Luna because they love doing that. So I'm pretty sure our record collections look very similar.
I don't think I've ever been a part of a band where we've sat, and I sometimes get these questions in interviews where we've sat down and be like, okay, we want to sound like these influences.
Sure.
It's always been, since I've been young and started my first bands, it's just been we make what we make. But I will give you some credit to your ear in hearing it come, especially with the Cult of Luna one. I'm least familiar with the Ocean's catalog as well, but in a circuitous kind of way, a real formative moment to me prior to joining Mountaineer was in 2015. Seeing Sub Rosa and Cult of Luna play together, and that really influenced the writing I do for my other band, Dogma, and I took that kind of writing energy into Mountaineer. So I think there are traces to be found. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So the next thing I'm going to ask, and I'm just going to be blunt, why 3 guitar players? Like what does the third guitar player bring that 2 doesn't?
a wall of sound.
A lot. I hate it when we don't have all three guitars for practice.
And I'm honestly asking because sonically, you could layer it, you could do it, with pedals and everything else too. But I'm asking you, what does the third guitar tone drastically change Mountaineer versus other bands?
Isaac.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Guitar question. Absolutely essential. And I do get this question from time to time. We certainly feel, if Forrest can't be there or one of us is missing, we definitely feel it. Mm-hmm. In terms of the sound, in terms of the feel of just band practice in the room, and kind of we feel this weight's been dropped from our sound that, we all have, nice guitar gear and, the things that people usually aspire to get, and we're lucky for that. Yeah, I mean, Clayton wrote a lot of ideas before that were at least 3 layers of guitar, and I usually layer when I'm composing at least 3 layers of guitar, and sometimes we might even have more than that. Like there's parts of passages in Bloodletting where there's like 6 guitars layered. We're really into that wall of sound thing. In a live experience, you need at least 3 of those.
Okay.
I mean, that's it. Otherwise, you take, and that's why, I mean, a band like Cult of Luna with their 2 drummers and 3, like, that's why a band like that is so amazing to see. And I think that's what you guys were looking for when you were looking for possibly more guitarists to add so you could actually do the vision you had created going all the way to the start of this conversation. Passages wouldn't have been possible to perform without 3 guitarists.
No, yeah, it's always been like, we want to be as loud as we can. And I mean, sometimes I'm like, man, especially at practice, I'm like, you guys are too loud. I can't hear vocals. But yeah, the whole idea is that huge wall of sound, like, and I think that's the most shoegaze influence.
Yeah.
In our band. It's just that huge, like, Kevin Shields, like, like, it just takes over you. It, like, transports you. And if you don't have that element, you are not going to feel what we're trying to show you.
That's funny that you say that.
To have the real 3 layers of guitar live. Because if we tried to do it live, missing one of those guitars, like Isaac said, you wouldn't feel it. It wouldn't be there. It's needed, and it can't be artificial. Because
and that's what I was saying was I wanted to get your feedback on it, because to me the reason why the 3 guitars work so well is that very shoegaze, black gaze kind of vibe where the atmosphere would be missing without that third guitar. And the 2 guitars have to be playing something, but one can be doing ambience and like really cool goddamn ambient. And that's what makes this work for me as well too. So thank you for that, because that's kind of the feedback I was looking for. No, it was very cool. Next thing I want to talk about is, why do you think the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area is so eclectic musically? I mean, there are so many bands there that I literally love. And, there's certain areas like Germany, the Bay Area. There's for me, it's like UK and Italy for like doom stuff. Like, it's just magical. Why do you think there are so many eclectic, heavy bands from that one area?
I feel like it's always been, the Bay Area has always been like a place. I mean, ever since like thrash, ever like the 80s, like it's always been, Bay Area has always been metal. Like, yeah, there's a punk scene, and we have Gilman, but even, I mean, the Neurosis was involved in Gilman, like they're all part of that. So it's like, it's just a marriage of all the sounds from the Bay just get together and like create this attitude. There's an attitude in the Bay Area. It's really cool, but yeah, I don't know if I have a clear answer, but I just know the Bear has always been heavy. The Bear has always been metal, man. Like,
well, and
a lot of the cool. Sorry, I'm like talking over you, Isaac. But a lot of the cool like metal bands that you've heard of come from the Bay, man. I mean, got a lot of bands that people love all over the world, and they're from the Bay.
Yeah.
You know, so.
All I was going to add to it was, I think growing up there was always a really strong punk scene here, and I was really as a young teenager, I was really part of the punk scene that was present from the Bay Area down to Santa Cruz. And for all of us who were playing in bands, there kind of hit a point in high school when we got a little bit better at our instruments. And it's like, okay, now if we're a little bit better at our instruments, we can't keep doing the punk rock thing.
Sure.
We want to write something that's a little bit more intricate and pretty. I guess punk rock isn't really the genre for it anymore.
Right.
And punk becomes metal once you actually learn how to play your guitar. So that was for me the evolution. And I've seen that with others around me who, people I went to high school with who I jammed around, I was like 15 years old. They're playing in some pretty successful bands, and it's really cool to see.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I make a joke. I've been a musician for 30 years myself and done a bunch of records, but I always make a joke. If you want to be a punk rock band, if you learn that fourth chord, you're out. Like, that's just like what it is. Like, that fourth chord makes you not punk anymore. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about the label that you're on. I know very little about Lifeforce besides a few bands that I've heard. You've been with them for 3 records now, from what I see. What makes it so what makes it such a special connection? And when I did look at the label, they have a pretty eclectic roster of folks. What makes it that special bond to keep coming back to them?
We just have a great relationship with Stefan, the owner, and every time it comes down to, hey, we got some songs, and it was like, it's like we just have a great relationship with him, so that's why we keep doing it. The roster is there's a lot of different flavors on Lifeforce, but they've been around for a long time, and he knows what he's doing. So
I looked a while back and saw that. I know there's been American bands on it before, but I think we were the only American band on it for a second.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's still true, but
Between the Buried and Me was on Lifeforce for a while.
Right. But at some moment we were like, everything else was Europe.
Yeah.
We just have a good relationship with Stefan, so it just works out.
Awesome. So next question I'm going to kind of ask is, we're going to switch it up, and I want to talk about 2 particular songs off of Giving Up the Ghost. All right. The first one is Bed of Flowers, and I'm going to just tell you the reason why that's one of my favorite songs on the record is the vocals mixed with those bombastic guitars and drums. There's just something special about those soaring melodies that come out on that song. Can you talk to me a bit about creating that song and how you guys feel about it?
You want to talk about it, Isaac?
No, I was going to say you should take credit for singing guitar lines that you. So in the writing of Bed of Flowers, we wrote it in our practice space, but I think it was one night when we were in the recording studio, and only Miguel and I were left. Everyone had bounced, and Miguel is trying to explain to me this guitar line that he's hearing in his head that has to be added to the song we already wrote, and he's singing at me like what he wants me to figure out in terms of bends. And honestly, I'm an all right composer, and I'm probably the shittiest soloist and lead guitarist in the entire band. So I'm the worst person to be doing that kind of thing. And we just figured it out together, and it just created something really unique and special. But yeah, Miguel does that sometimes. If he has an idea in his head, he'll try to sing the guitar at you.
I mean, I can play a guitar, but I'm a shit guitar player. So I was like, we have to do this, man. And
no, you were right.
It's like, explain what, but is it a bend or is it a slide? I'm like, it sounds like a slide, but I think it's a bend. We're gonna have to. So we tried the slides. Like, it's not a slide, so it's a bend. And then it was really cool. But yeah, we had to have that melody, which is that sound you hear that goes boom over the main riff. Yeah. That song was actually the last one we finished when we were writing this album. The vocal part came at the very end. For a long time, we had a different vocal idea for it, and we're like, nah, it's not right. There's something weird about it. And then finally, at the end, Clayton showed me something that he came up with, and he's like, I think it should be like this, and he had the chorus, and it was like, dude, like, just like, stop the bleeding, and I was like, dude, oh my god. So then we were at his house, and like, he fucking turned on the Pro Tools, and we're like, dude, that's it. I was like, that, because I had something completely different, and he was like, dude, stop the bleeding, and I'm like, dude, that is it. And then we did, like, I remember after an hour or two, we shared the idea with everyone. We're like, yeah, that's Bed of Flowers right there.
You know what, Miguel, you're reminding me of something that's, I portrayed the recording process or the writing process of Giving Up the Ghost a little inaccurately. We did write it all together, but I remember when we were doing practices at the time, which was middle of pandemic, no one was vaccinated. We weren't really doing vocals much because we were all wearing masks. And so it was really a surprise to hear a lot of the vocals kind of came together at the end, and then we're all looking back at this album like, fuck, Miguel, like, you kind of took over this record with your vocals, like, but that was a bit of a surprise to all of us. And
that's right, because
ours.
Yeah, Clayton and I worked on the vocals at his house because we couldn't, like I said, we weren't really getting together too much for vocals, and like a lot of the ideas, there's a lot of writing in this, together at our studio. And I wasn't taking off my mask to sing. I was just thinking of the ideas, writing them down, and then Clayton and I would get together and record them, and then we would share them.
Yeah, you would just be sitting there with a notepad, like,
write stuff down and like come up with ideas. Yeah, cool. Just because we were taking precautions.
Of course. Cool. So the other song that I want to talk about is "When the Soul Sleeps," and the reason why. That is my absolute favorite song on the record. And I'm going to tell you the reason why, and then you guys can kind of talk into it. It has and yes, I'm using the word perfect. I know you should never use the word perfect in music, but it has the perfect mix of dreamy and nightmare at the same time. And you never really hear that. There is only one other band that has ever given me chills like that, and that is Killing Joke. All right? And the reason why that is because Jazz Coleman's vocals are fucking magical. Okay, they are the most magical vocals. I don't know how the man can sing like that. He can do death metal songs and 80s pop songs. It's just mind-numbing. You do the same thing on this song to me. Like, you mix beauty and darkness in such a way vocally, and the music, it's almost the opposite. It gets heavier when you get nice, and it gets lighter when you get angry. Like, it's, and I don't know why it's like that, but talk to me about that song, because I love that song.
Yeah, it just feels like it just continues. It's like it just keeps driving, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps taking you. Once it starts, it doesn't stop until it ends. It's like the lyrics for that song. It's like the first thing I wrote when I was like doing nothing. Like, I was just at home, not working, not doing anything. And so, it's the first thing that came, and I came to my mind, wrote it down. And when it came to putting it on that piece of music, it just fits so perfectly. I know what you feel, that song just kind of has like this ongoing like stress and release kind of feel.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's I don't know, Isaac. Do you want to throw in?
Yeah, I mean, When the Soul Sleeps is a perfect example of the kind of writing process we've been describing, where, exactly that. I think I came in with the first riff of that song, and it's kind of that typical, I wrote something pretty, and then show it to you guys like it, and then I have another idea for it, Miguel and Clayton's like, no, 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 it's got to go heavy right after. Here's the heavy riff that we're going to add to your pretty thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's exactly that. It's like I used to come in with a song, but now I'm like, no, I'm just going to come in with a riff. And my riff gets, Clayton's riff, which is a heavy thing next to my pretty thing. And then we end up just playing some chords randomly together, and Clayton starts writing some beautiful kind of hooky thing. He's really good at hooks. But yeah, I mean, that's why it's just a song that represents all of us.
Nice. It couldn't be better said than that. Awesome. That's exactly like that's exactly what I hear. It feels like a culmination of everybody on that song. So that's the great thing. I have 2 questions left for you guys. And these are both thinkers. So they're not like straightforward questions. The first one is, so I know, Isaac, you were not there day one, but I want your thoughts on it too. How do you feel like 2015, like day one Mountaineer, would think about 2022 Mountaineer?
Was that for you, Isaac, or for me? I'm sorry.
Both of you.
Oh.
I'm gonna let you do that one first, since you were there.
I think 2015 Mountaineer would be like, fuck yeah. That's how I feel. Because in Sirens and Slumber, and if you go back and listen to it, there's a lot of similarities. I feel that Giving Up the Ghost has a lot of similarities. It connects back to Sirens and Slumber. Because if you listen to Sirens and Slumber, I guess you could say it's our prettiest record, because it has the most clean singing on any of our records. And it's also like our cleanest on guitars. It's like, there's a lot of layers of clean, pretty guitars, and it does get heavy, but I feel like I always call it like our poppiest record. And I feel like with Giving Up the Ghost, like we kind of returned to hooks, which, as opposed to Passages and Bloodletting, where it was all about a huge landscape and building like some sort of feeling, which, I mean, obviously there is one in Giving Up the Ghost as well. But I feel just like that poppy, hooky element came back, which we hadn't done in a long time. So I think 2015 would be like, that's what we were trying to do with Sirens.
Nice.
Yeah. I wasn't there for the beginning of this, but I'll answer your question in terms of if I could go back to 2015 and, tell myself that in 2022 I'd be part of this cool project. Miguel, I'll tell you guys, I'm always grateful that I met you guys, that I got to be a part of this. And the year I joined, 2018, I mean, that was a crazy year where I had absolutely no time in my life to devote. I was just going back to grad school and changing careers and trying to get my other band going at the same time. I had no time for a second band on top of all of that. But you guys were so worth it to me because I saw how special the project was. I was listening to Passages on repeat. I loved that record. And, I just feel so happy I get to really collaborate and grow as an artist with you guys through this project. And I wouldn't have believed it would be true if it was 2015. I thought I was just gonna be writing shitty looped guitar parts in my bedroom by myself forever.
Oh, that's awesome.
Safe, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I can relate to that because, man, I did some of the vocals on Sirens and Slumber. Like when we were writing those songs, I would go into my closet in my apartment with my laptop, and I didn't have a microphone, like a pro mic, to plug in to my computer to record vocals. So I would just scream or sing far away from the computer in the closet just to try and get like like a good recording, and then I would go and fix it, and add like some reverb and stuff. But yeah, I would never think that we would actually be a full band. Like
Gotcha.
we were, it was just Clayton and I, and that was it. At the beginning, we were like, yeah, we don't know if this is ever gonna be like if we're ever gonna play shows. We don't know if we're ever gonna do anything. This is just like something that we're doing, and we're putting out a record, but we don't even have a band.
Gotcha. Cool.
So yeah, like I
Awesome.
said, yeah, 2015 Mountaineer, 2015 Miguel would be extremely stoked to know that this is what we're doing now.
Awesome. So the last question I have is, if you could pick any one band or artist and to take your new record, Giving Up the Ghost, take one track off of it and make it their own, who would you want to rework or re-record that song?
Oh, that's a real thinker, man.
I know. That's why I do it.
I have two bands. Can I?
That's fine. Do both.
And these are going to be bands that I don't think Isaac's thinking of.
Yeah, because you can answer this in a weird way. And
Well,
Yeah.
I would like to see what Deftones would do with one of our songs.
Okay.
I think they could do something cool.
of course, that was answer, man.
Yeah, of course. I knew Isaac knew that one of them was going to be that. And the other, I'd like to see what Alice in Chains would do with one of our songs.
Oh, wow. I think Lane would do some impressive things for you.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. 90s Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isaac, what about you, buddy?
Well, outside of the metal world, I think there's just forefront of mind because Miguel and I just saw them last weekend. But, if I could add more band members, if we could like collaborate with Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Oh, good.
I want to be part of it too. And just I dream of having 30 people. 3 guitars is not enough, man. You need 6 or 7. That's how you really make the sound I want to make. So we could just reinterpret some piece with everyone else as a part of it. That would be an amazing.
I have been thinking about bringing some percussion on stage, and then when I'm not singing, have cymbal.
Yeah, dude, this is me making my pitch for 5 more band members.
Have a tambourine in the triangle and do weird stuff.
I've seen Godspeed You Black Emperor 3 times, and I can understand what you're talking about. It is if you've not seen them live, you are missing out on something that is beyond amazing. So yes, I've seen them in theaters, and I've literally seen them in a club. So it's and it doesn't matter where it is. It's just amazing, just where they are. So I saw them one time with 7 people, and the other time I saw them with 11. So it really just doesn't matter. So, but yeah, awesome. So I want to say from the bottom of my heart, both Miguel and Isaac, thank you so much for doing this. You are my first interview back after moving, and I haven't done interviews in 3 months. And I was super, super excited when you guys were the first ones to say yes. So again, keep doing what you're doing. Keep making this kind of music, because not enough people make this kind of music. And what I mean by is emotional, powerful, heavy, and atmospheric all at the same time. With that, again, I will make sure people have links to your social media, to your way to digitally buy, physically buy. And if you ever come to Florida, let me know. I will be at the show ecstatically. All right. But other than that, this is Clint from the Doorway too, thanking both Miguel and Isaac from Mountaineer for kicking ass and doing my first new interview in 3 months.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.